Hello, we're gonna be starting very soon, very soon. And I am going to put a link to the fireplace. Just so you guys can see me. I'm gonna be starting in just a moment. I'm just getting some other technical things taken care of, and we're gonna begin. So there is a link to the fireplace going on behind me. It is in the description, or at least it should be. If it's not in the description right now, it will be later on. So just bear with me. We'll be ready in just a moment. Make sure you like and share this with your friends so they can also enjoy the fun and festivities. There's no festivities. Just the fun. All right. Okay. Oops. Alright, that does not matter so much. That works. Alright. Sorry, I was just getting situated with some last minute details. Alright, so I'm going to continue on from where we were reading yesterday. And if you guys remember, basically R2-D2 and C-3PO had recently left the ship that Princess Leia was captured on, and Darth Vader killed some guys. Yeah, that's where we're at. So I'm going to continue reading. I'm going to read as much as I can. Might not read the entire book because it is a school night. Okay. I hope how's the lighting? Let me know if I should try and add more lighting. I think there's a lamp I can grab. That's the best I can do for lighting. Maybe. Let's see if that helps a little bit. Give some background. That has a little. Well, it'll give me some backlighting. All right. So, here we go. The binding that locked the girl's hands behind her back was primitive and effective. The constant attention of the squad of heavily armed troopers favored her might have been out of place for one small female, except for the fact that their lives depended on her being delivered safely. When she deliberately slowed her pace, however, it became apparent that her captors did not mind mistreating her a little. One of the armored figures shoved her brutally in the small of the back, and she nearly fell. Turning, she gave the offended soldier a vicious look, but she could not tell if it had any effect, since the man's face was completely hidden by the armored helmet. The hallway they eventually emerged into was still smoking, and around the edges of the smoldering cavity blasted through the hull of the fighter. A portable accessory had been sealed to it, and a circlet of light showed at the far end of the tunnel. Bridging space between the rebel craft and the cruisers, a shadow moved over her as she turned away from inspecting the accessway, startling her despite her usual unshakable self-control. Above her towered the threatening bulk of Darth Vader, red eyes glaring behind the hideous breath mask. A muscle twitched in one smooth cheek, but other than that, the girl didn't react, nor was there the slightest shake in her voice. Darth Vader, I should have known. Only you would be so bold and so stupid. Well, the Imperial Senate will not sit still for this. When they hear that you've attacked diplomatic Miss Senator Leia Organa. Senator Leia Organa, Vader rumbled softly, though strongly enough to override her protests. His pleasure at finding her was evident in the way he savored every syllable.
Don't play games with me, Your Highness, he continued ominously. You aren't on any mercy mission this time. You passed directly through a restricted system, ignoring numerous warnings and completely disregarding orders to turn about until it no longer mattered.
The huge metal skull dipped close.
I know that several transmissions were beamed to this vessel by spies within the system. When we traced those transmissions back to the individuals with whom they originated, they had the poor grace to kill themselves before they could be questioned. I want to know what happened to the data they sent you.
Neither Vader's words nor his inimical. Never heard that word. Neither Vader's words nor his inimical. Neither Vader's words nor his inimical. Gosh, this is bad. Neither Vader's words nor his inimical presence appeared to have any effect on the girl. I don't know what you're blathering about, she snapped, looking away from him. I'm a member of the Senate on a diplomatic mission to—
You're part of the Rebel Alliance,
Darth Vader declared, cutting her off accusingly.
You're also a traitor.
His gaze went to the nearby officer.
Take her away!
She succeeded in reaching him with her spit, which hissed against still hot battle armor. He wiped the offensive matter away silently, watching her with interest as she marched through the accessway into the cruiser. A tall, slim soldier wearing the sign of Imperial Commander attracted Vader's attention as he came up to next to him.
Holding her is dangerous.
Holding her is dangerous, he ventured, likewise looking after her as she was escorted toward the cruiser. If one word of this got out, there will be much unrest in the Senate. It will generate sympathy for the rebels. The commander looked up at the unreadable metal face, then added in an offhanded manner, She should be destroyed immediately.
No, my first duty is to locate the hidden fortress of theirs,
Vader replied easily.
All the rebel spies have been eliminated by our hand, by our own. Therefore, she is now my only key to discovering its location. I intend to make full use of her. If necessary, I will use her up. But I will learn the location of the rebel base.
The commander pursed his lips, shook his head slightly, perhaps a bit sympathetic as he considered the woman. She'll die before she gives you any information. Vader's reply was chilling in indifference.
Leave that to me.
He considered a moment and went on.
Send out a wideband distress signal. Indicate the senator's ship encountered an unexpected meteorite cluster and could not be avoided. Readings indicate the ship's shields were overridden and the ship was hulled to the point of vacating 95% of the atmosphere. Inform her father and the Senate that all aboard were killed.
A cluster of tired-looking troops marched purposely up to the commander and the Dark Lord. Vader eyed them expectantly. The data tapes in question are not aboard the ship. There is no valuable information in the ship's storage banks and no evidence of bank insurer. Officer in charge received mechanically. Nor were there any transmissions directed outward from the ship from the time we made contact. A malfunctioning life pod was ejected during fighting, but it was confirmed at the time that no life forms were on board. Vader appeared thoughtful.
It could have been a malfunction. It could have been a malfunctioning pod, he mused. That might also have contained the tapes. Tapes are not life forms. In all probability, any knave finding them would be ignorant of their importance and would likely clear them for his own use. Still, send down a detachment to retrieve them, or to make certain that they are not in the pod.
He finally ordered the commander and attentive officer.
Be as subtle as possible. There is no need to attract attention, even on the miserable outpost world.
As the officer and troops departed, Vader turned his gaze back to the commander.
Vaporize the freighter. We don't want to leave any hit. As for the pod, I cannot take a chance it will be simply malfunction. The data it might contain could prove to do damage. See to this personally, Commander. If those data tapes exist, they must be retrieved or destroyed at all costs.
Then he added with satisfaction,
With that accomplished, the center in our hands, we will see the end of this absurd rebellion.
"It shall be as you direct, Lord Vader," the commander acknowledged. Both men entered the accessway to the cruiser. "What a forsaken place this is!" 3PO turned cautiously to look back at where the pod lay half buried in sand. His internal gyros were still unsteady from the rough landing. Mere application of the term unduly flattered his dull associate. On the other hand, he supposed he ought to be grateful they had come down in one piece. Although he mused as he studied the barren landscape, he still wasn't sure they were better off here than they would have been had they remained on the captured cruiser. High sandstone mesas dominated the skyline to one side. Every other direction showed only endless series of marching dunes like long yellow teeth stretching for a kilometer on kilometer into the distance. Sand ocean blended into sky glare until it was impossible to distinguish where one ended and the other began. A faint cloud of minute dust particles rose in their wake as the two robots marched away from the pod. That vehicle, its intended function fully discharged, was now quite useless. Neither robot had been designed for pedal locomotion in this kind of terrain, so they had to fight their way across the unstable surface. "We seemed meant to be made to suffer," 3PO moaned in self-pity. "Little rotten existence." Something squeaked in his right leg, and he winced. "I've got to rest before I fall apart. My internals still haven't received from the headlong crash you called a landing." He paused, but R2-D2 did not. The little automaton had performed a sharp turn and was now ambling slowly but steadily in the direction of the nearest outjut of Mesa. "Hey!" 3PO yelled. R2 ignored the call and continued striding. "Where do you think you're going?" Now R2 paused, emitting a stream of electronic explanations as 3PO exhaustedly walked over to join him. "Well, I'm not going that way," 3PO declared when R2 had concluded his explanation. "It's too rocky." He gestured in the direction they had been walking, at an angle away from the cliffs. "This way is much easier." A metal hand waved despairingly at the higher mesas. "What makes you think that there is any settlements that way, anyhow?" A local whistle issued from the depths of R2. "Don't get tactical with me," 3PO warned. "I've had just about enough of your decisions." R2 beeped once. "All right, go your way," 3PO announced gladly. "You'll be sandlocked for a day, and nearsighted scrap pile." He gave the R2 unit a contemptuous shove, sending the smaller robot tumbling down a slight dune. As it struggled at the bottom to regain its feet, 3PO started off toward the blurred, glaring horizon, glancing back over his shoulder. Don't let me catch you following me, begging for help," he warned, "because you won't get it." Below the crest of the dune, the R2 unit righted itself and It paused briefly to clean its single electronic eye with an auxiliary arm. Then it produced an electronic squeal which is almost, though not quite, a human expression of rage. Humming quietly to itself then, it turned and trudged off toward the sandstone ridges as if nothing had happened. Several hours later, a straining 3PO, his internal thermostat overloaded and edging dangerously toward overheat, shut down, struggled up to the top. I'm going to read that over again. Several hours later, a straining 3PO, his internal thermostat overloaded and edging dangerously toward overheating, shut down, struggled up to the top of what he hoped was the last towering dune. Nearby, pillars of buttresses and bleached calcium, the bones of some enormous beast, formed an unpromising landmark. Reaching the crest of the dune, 3PO peered anxiously ahead. Instead of the hoped-for greenery of human civilization, he saw only several dozen more dunes, identical in form and promise to the one he now stood upon. The farthest rose even higher than the one he presently surmounted. 3PO turned and looked back toward the now far-off rocky plateau, which was beginning to grow indistinct with the distance and heat distorted. 3PO turned and looked back toward the now far-off rocky plateau, which was now beginning to grow indistinct for distance and heat distortion. "You malfunctioning little twerp!" he muttered, unable even now to admit to himself that perhaps, just possibly, the R2 unit might have been right. "This is all your fault. You tricked me into going this way, but you'll do no better." Nor would he if he didn't continue on. So he took a step forward and heard something grind dolefully within a leg joint. Sitting down in an electronic funk, he began picking sand from his encrusted joints. He could continue on his present course, he told himself, or he could confess to an error in judgment and try to catch up again with R2-D2. Neither prospect held much appeal for him. But there was a third choice. He could sit here, shining in the sunlight until his joints locked, his internals overheated, and the ultraviolet burned out his photoreceptors. He would become another monument to the destructive power of the binary, like the colossal organism whose picked corpse he did just encountered. Already his receptors were beginning to go. He reflected, it seemed he saw. Already his receptors were beginning to go, he reflected. It seemed he saw something moving in the distance. Heat distortion, probably. No. It was definitely light or metal, and it was moving towards him. His hopes soared. Ignoring the warnings from his damaged leg, he rose and began waving frantically. It was, he saw now, definitely a vehicle, though a type unfamiliar to him. But a vehicle it was, and that implied intelligence and technology. He neglected in his excitement to consider the possibility that it might not be of human origin. So I cut off my power, shut down the afterburners, and dropped them low on Deke's tail. Luke finished, waving his arms wildly. He and Biggs were walking in the shade outside of the power station. Sounds of metal being worked came from somewhere within, where Fixer had finally joined his robot assistant in performing repairs. I was so close to him, Luke continued excitedly. I thought I was going to fry my instrumentation. As it was, I busted up the Skyhopper pretty bad. That recollection inspired a frown. Uncle Owen was pretty upset. He grounded me for the rest of the season. Luke's depression was brief. Memory of his feat overrode his immortality. You should have been there, Biggs. You gotta take it a little easier, his friend cautioned. You might be the hottest bush pilot this side of Mos Eisley, Luke, but those little skyhoppers can be dangerous. They move awfully fast for transferic craft, faster than they need to. Keep playing engine jockey with one of those, and someday, whammo! He slammed one fist violently into his open palm. You're going to be nothing more than a dark spot on the damp side of a canyon wall. Look who's talking, Luke retorted. Now that you've been on a few big automatic starships, you're beginning to sound like my uncle. You've gotten guns up in cities. He swung spiritedly at Biggs, who blocked the movement easily, making a half-hearted gesture of counterattack. Biggs' easygoing smugness dissolved into something warmer. I've missed you, kid. Luke looked away, embarrassed. Things haven't exactly been the same since you left either, Biggs. It's been so. Luke hunted for the right word and finally finished helplessly. So quiet. His gaze traveled across the sandy, deserted stretches of Anchorhead. It's always been quiet. Really. Biggs grew silent, thinking. He glanced around. They were alone out here. Everyone else was back inside the comparative coolness of the power station. As he leaned close to Luke, as he leaned close, Luke sensed an unaccustomed sullenness in his friend's tone. Luke, I didn't come back just to say goodbye or to crow over everyone because I got through the academy. Again, he seemed to hesitate, unsure of himself. Then he blurted out rapidly, not giving himself a chance to back down. But I want somebody to know. I can't tell my parents. Gaping at Biggs, Luke could only go. No what? What are you talking about? I'm talking about the talking that's been going on about at the academy and other places, Luke. Strong talking. I made some new friends, out-system friends. We agreed about the way certain things are developing, and his voice dropped conspiratorially. When we reach one of the peripheral systems, we're going to jump ship and join the Alliance. Luke stared back at his friend, tried to picture Biggs, fun-loving, happy-go-lucky, live-for-today Biggs, as a patriot afire with the rebellious fervor. You're going to join the rebellion? He started. You've got to be kidding! How? Damp down, will you? The bigger man cautioned, glancing furtively back toward the power station. You've got a mouth like a crater. I'm sorry, Luke whispered rapidly. I'm quiet. Listen, how quiet am I? I'm quiet. Listen how quiet I am. You can barely hear me. Biggs cut him off and continued. A friend of mine from the academy has been a friend on Best Eye, who might enable us to make contact with an armed rebel unit. A friend? You're crazy, Luke announced with a conviction, certain his friend had gone mad. You could wander around forever trying to find a real rebel outpost. Most of them are only myths. You could wander around forever trying to find a real rebel outpost. Most of them are only myths. This twice-removed friend could be an Imperial agent. You'd end up on Kessel or worse. If rebel outposts were so easy to find, the Empire would have wiped them out years ago. It's a long shot, Biggs admitted reluctantly. If I don't contact them, then a peculiar light came into Biggs' eyes, a conglomeration of newfound maturity and something else. I'll do what I can on my own. He stared intensely at his friend. Luke, I'm not going to wait for the Empire to conscript me into its service. In spite of what you have heard of the official information channels, the rebellion is growing, spreading. And I want to be on the right side, the side I believe in. His voice altered unpleasantly, and Luke wondered what he saw in his mind's eye. You should have heard some of the stories I've heard. Luke, learn. Hold on, catch being butts. What are you doing? She's just chilling. She's just chilling. Don't be a jerk.
Cats, man.
Cats. Alright, ba-da-da-da-da. He stared intensely at his friend. Luke, I'm not going to wait for the Empire to conscript me into its service. In spite of what you have heard over the official information channels, the rebellion is growing, spreading, and I want to be on the right side, the side I believe in. His voice altered unpleasantly, and Luke wondered what he saw in his mind's eye. You should have heard some of the stories I've heard, Luke. Learned some of the outrages I've learned about. The Empire may have been great and beautiful once, but the people in charge now. He shook his head sharply. It's rotten, Luke. Rotten. And I can't do a damn thing, Luke muttered remorselessly. I'm stuck here. He kicked futilely at the ever-present sand of Anchorhead. I thought you were going to enter the academy. I thought you were going to enter the academy soon, Biggs observed. If that's so, then you'll have your chance to get off the sand pile. Luke snorted derisively. Not likely. I had to withdraw my application. He looked away, unable to meet his friend's disbelieving stare. I had to. There's been a lot of unrest among the sand people since you left Biggs. They've even raided the outskirts of Anchorhead. They've even raided the outskirts of Anchorhead. Biggs shook his head in disregarding the excuse. Your uncle could hold off a whole colony of raiders with one blaster. From the house, sure, Luke agreed. But Uncle Owen's finally got enough vaporators installed that running to make the farm pay off. But Uncle Owen's finally got enough vaporators installed and running to make the farm pay off big. But he can't guard all that land by himself. He says he needs me for one more season. I can't run out on him now. Big sighed sadly. I feel for you, Luke. Someday you're going to have to learn to separate what seems to be important from what really is. He gestured around them. What good is all your uncle's work if it's taken over by the Empire? I've heard that they're starting to imperialize commerce in all the outlying systems. It won't be long before your uncle and everyone else on Tatooine are just tenants slaving away for the greater glory of the Empire. That couldn't happen here, Luke objected with confidence he didn't quite feel. You said it yourself. The Empire won't bother this rock. Things change, Luke. Only the threat of the rebellion keeps many in power from doing certain unmentionable things. If that threat is completely removed, well, there are two things men have never been able to satisfy: their curiosity and their greed. There isn't much high imperial bureaucrats the high imperial bureaucrats are curious about. Both men stood silent. A sand whirl traversed the street in silent majesty, collapsing against a wall to send newborn baby Zephyrus in all directions. I wish I was going with you, Luke finally murmured. He glanced up. Will you be around long? No. As a matter of fact, I'm leaving in the morning to rendezvous with the Ecliptic. Then I guess I won't be seeing you again. Maybe someday, Biggs declared. He brightened, grinning and disarmed in darkness. He brightened, grinning that disarming grin. I'll keep a lookout for you, Hotshot. But try not to run into the canyon walls in the meantime. I'll be at the academy the season after, Luke insisted, more to encourage himself than Big. After all, who knows where I'll end up? He sounded determined. I won't be drafted into the Starfleet, that's for sure. Take care of yourself. You'll always be the best friend I've got. There was no need for a handshake. These two had long since passed beyond that. So long then, Luke, Biggs said simply. He turned and re-entered the power station. Luke watched him disappear through the door, his own thoughts as chaotic and frenetic as one of Tatooine's spontaneous dust storms. There were any number of extraordinary features unique to Tatooine's surface. Outstanding among them were the mysterious mists which rose regularly from the ground at the points where the desert sands washed against unyielding cliffs and mesas. Fog in a steaming desert seemed as out of place as cactus on a glacier, but it existed nonetheless. Meteorologists and geologists argued its origin among themselves, muttering hard-to-believe theories about water suspended in sandstone, veins beneath the sand, and incomprehensible chemical reaction, which made the water rise from the ground, cool, then fall underground again with the double sunrise. It was all very backwards and very real. Neither the mist nor the alien moans of nocturnal desert dwellers troubled R2-D2. However, as he made his careful way up the rocky arrowy, hunting for the easiest pathways to the mesa's top, his squarish, broad footpads had clicking sounds, loud in the evening, light as sand underfoot gave way gradually to gravel. For a moment he paused. He seemed to detect a noise, like metal on rock, ahead of him. Instead of rock on rock, the sound wasn't repeated, though, and he quickly resumed his ambling ascent. Up the arroyo, too far up to be seen from below, a pebble trickled loose from the sandstone, The tiny figure, which had accidentally dislodged the pebble, retreated mouse-like into the shadow. The two glowing points of light showed under the covering folds of a brown cape. Two glowing points of light showed under the overlapping folds of a brown cape, a meter from the narrowing canyon wall. Only the reaction of the unsuspecting robot indicated the presence of the whining. Only the reaction of the unsuspecting robot indicated the presence of the whining beam as it struck him. For a moment, R2-D2 fluoresced eerily in the dimming light. There wasn't a single short electronic squeak. Then the tripodal support unbalanced and the tiny automaton toppled over onto his back, the light on its front blinking on and off erratically from the effects of the paralyzing beam. Three travesties of men scurried out from behind concealing boulders. Their motions were more indicative of rodent than humankind, and they stood a little taller than the R2 unit. When they saw the single burst of evaporating energy had immobilized the robot, they holstered their peculiar weapons. Nevertheless, they approached the listless machine cautiously, with the trepidation of hereditary cowards. Their cloaks were thickly coated with dust and sand. Unhealthy red-yellow pupils glowed cat-like from the depths of their hoods as they studied their captive. The Jawas conversed in low guttural croaks and scrambled analogues of human speech. If an anthropologists, if, as anthropologists hypothesized, they had ever been human, they had long since degenerated past anything resembling the human race. Several more Jawas appeared. Together they succeeded to alternately hoisting the dragging. Several more Jawas appeared. Together they succeeded in alternately hoisting the dragging the robot back down the arroyo. At the bottom of the canyon, like some monstrous prehistoric beast, was a sandcrawler, as enormous as its owners and operators were tiny. Several dozen meters high, the vehicle towered above the ground on multiple treads and were taller than a tall man. Its metal epidermis were battered and pitted with the withstanding untold sandstorm. My nose is itchy. I'm not taking my nose. I do that. On the reaching of the crawler, the Jawas resumed jabbering among themselves. R2-D2 could hear them, but failed to comprehend anything. He need not have been embarrassed at this failure. If they so wished, only Jawas could understand other Jawas, for they employed a randomly variable language that drove linguists mad. One of them removed a small disc from a belt pouch and sealed it to R2's unit flank. to the R2 unit's flank. A large tube protruded from one side of the gargantuan vehicle. They rolled him over to it and then moved clear. There was a brief moan, the whoosh of a powerful vacuum, and the small robot was sucked into the bowels of the sandcrawler as neatly as a pea of a straw. This part of the job completed, the Jawas engaged in another bout of jabbering, following which they scurried into the crawler via tubes and ladders, for all the world like a nest of mice returning to their holes. None too gently, the suction tube deposited R2 in a small cubicle. In addition to varied piles of broken instruments and outright scrap, a dozen or so robots of differing shapes and sizes populated the prison. A few were locked in electronic conversation. Others muddled aimlessly about. But when R2 tumbled into a chamber, one voice bursted out into surprise. "R2-D2, it's you, isn't it?" called an excited 3PO from the near darkness. He made his way over to the still immobilized repair unit and embraced it most unmechanically. Spotting the small disc sealed on R2's side, 3PO turned his gaze thoughtfully down to his own chest, where a similar device had likewise been attached. Massive gears, poorly lubricated, started to move. With a groaning and grinding, the monster sandcrawler turned and lumbered it with relentless patience into the desert night. I might end it right here, but I'll make it continue. Chapter 3. The banished conference table was a solace and unyielding as the mood of the 8 imperial senators and the officers ranged around it. Imperial troopers stood guard at the entrance to the chamber, which was sparse and coldly lit from light in the tables and walls. One of the youngest of the 8 was declaiming. He exhibited the attitude of one who had climbed far and fast by methods best not examined too closely. General Tague did possess a certain twisted genius, but it was only partially that ability which had lifted him to his present exalted position. Other noisome talents had proven equally effectuous. Although his uniform was as neatly molded and his body as clean as that of anyone else in the room, none of the remaining 7 cared to touch him. A certain sliminess clung clingingly to him. That's a new word too. I'm learning all sorts of new words reading this book. A certain sliminess clung clingingly to him, a sensation of inferred rather than tactile. Despite this, many respected him, or feared him.
I tell you, he's gone too far this time, the general was insisting vehemently. This Sith Lord inflicted on us at the urging of the Emperor will be our undoing. Until the battle station is fully operational, we remain vulnerable. Some of you still don't seem to realize how equipped and organized the Rebel Alliance is. Their vessels are excellent, their pilots are better, and they are propelled by something more powerful than mere engines. This perverse reactionary fanaticism of theirs, they're more dangerous than most of you realize. An older officer with facial scars so deeply engraved that even the best cosmetic surgery could not fully repair them, shifted nervously in his chair. Dangerous to your Starfleet, General Tague, but not to this battle station. The wizened eyes hopped from man to man, traveling around the table. I happen to think Lord Vader knows what he's doing. The rebellion will continue only as long as these cowards have the sanctuary, a place where their pilots can relax and the machine can be repaired. Tague objected. I beg to differ with you, Ramadi. I think the construction of this station is more to do with the Governor Tarkin's bid for personal power and recognition than with justifiable military strategy. Within the Senate, the rebels will continue to increase their support as long. The sound of the single doorway sliding aside and guards snapping to attention cut him off. His head turned, as did everyone else's. 2 individuals as different in appearance as they were united in objectives, had entered the chamber. The nearest to Tague was a thin, hatchet-faced man with hair and form borrowed. The nearest to Tague was a thin, hatchet-faced man with hair and form borrowed from an old broom. And the expression of a quiescent piranha. More words I don't know. The Grand Moff Tarkin, governor of the numerous outlying imperial territories, was dwarfed by the broad, armored bulk of Darth Vader. Tague, unintimidated but subdued, slowly resumed his seat. As Tarkin assumed his place at the end of the conference table, Vader stood next to him, a dominating presence behind the governor's chair. For a minute, Tarkin stared directly at Tague, then glanced away as if he'd seen nothing. Tague fumed, but remained silent. Hiccup. As Tarkin's gaze roved around the table, a razor-thin smile of satisfaction remained frozen in his features. The Imperial Senate will no longer be of any concern to us, gentlemen. I have just received word that the Emperor has permanently dissolved that misguided body. A ripple of astonishment ran through the assembly. The last remnants, Tarkin continued,
of the old republic have finally been swept away.
This is impossible,
Teig interjected.
How will the Emperor maintain control of the imperial bureaucracy?
Senatorial representation has not been firmly abolished. You must understand, Tarkin explained. It has merely been suspended for the, he smiled a bit more, duration of the emergency. Regional governors will now have a direct control and a free hand in administering their territories. This means the Imperial presence can at least be brought to bear properly on the facilitating words of the Empire. From now on, fear will keep potentially traitorous local governments in line. Fear of the Imperial fleet. Fear of this battle station. Interesting. Oh, I bet he's hungry. Sorry, cat.
And what of the existence of a rebellion?
Teig wanted to know. If the rebellion somehow manages to gain access to the complete technical schemes of this battle station, it is remotely possible that... I don't know.
Is the rebels
These cats, man, they're distracting, I tell you.
If the rebels somehow manage to gain access to the complete technical schemes of the battle station, it is remotely possible that they might be able to locate a weakness susceptible to minor exploitation.
Tarkin's smile shifted to a smirk.
Of course,
we all know how well guarded, how carefully protected such vital data is. It could not possibly fall into rebel hands.
The technical data to which you are obliquely referring to,
rumbled Darth Vader angrily,
will soon be back in our hands if...
Tarkin shook the Dark Lord off, something no one else at the table would have dared to do. It is immaterial. It is immaterial. Any attack made against this nation by the rebels would be suicidal gestures, suicidal and useless. Suicidal and useless, regardless of any information they managed to obtain. After many long years of secretive construction, he declared with the evident pleasure, this station has become the decisive force in this part of the universe. Events in this region of the galaxy will no longer be determined by the fate, by decree, or by any other agency. They will be decided by the station. A huge metal-clad hand gestured slightly, and one of the filled cups at the table drifted responsively into it. With a slightly admonishing tone, the Dark Lord continued.
Don't become too proud of this technological terror you've spawned, Tarkin. They built it to destroy a city or world. A whole system is still insignificant when set against the power of the Force.
The Force?
The Force?
Teig sneered.
Don't try to frighten us with your sorcerer's ways, Lord Vader. Your sad devotion to that ancient mythology has not helped you to conjure up those stolen tapes, or gifted you with clairvoyance sufficient to locate the rebels' hidden fortress. Why, it's enough to make one laugh fit to...
Teig's eyes abruptly bulged, and his hand went to his throat as he began to turn disconcerting shade of blue.
I find,
Vader ventured mildly,
this lack of faith disturbing.
Enough of this, Tarkin snapped, distressed. Vader, release him. This bickering among ourselves is pointless. That's been now. Vader shrugged as if it were no consequence. Teig slumped in his seat, rubbing his throat, his weary gaze never leaving the dark giant. Lord Vader will provide us with the location of the rebel fortress by the time the station is certified operational, Tarkin declared. That known, we will proceed to it and destroy it utterly, crushing this pathetic rebellion in one swift stroke.
As the Emperor wills it,
Vader added, not without sarcasm.
So shall it be.
If any of the powerful men seated around the table found the disrespect tone objectionable, A glance at Tay was sufficient to dissuade them from mentioning it. And I think I'm gonna stop there. Got a good chunk of pages read, and I do have to work tomorrow. I have a couple other things I'd like to do before we go to sleep tonight. So I'm gonna end this. Give me some feedback. Like, share, comment. Tell your friends. Tell your friends.